The Ride to Victory, Surviving Trauma and Addiction, Tom Shaw and Kimberly Haynes. Chapter 1, Overcoming My Struggle with Opioids. If the measure of intelligence is the ability to change, then understand that change is constant, and one will often have to adapt and overcome when life hands you more than you believe you can handle. Tom Shaw. January 5th, 2018 was the last time I used opioids. Oh wow, this is a very new book. My lowest point was the end of the third day and beginning of the fourth. Before then, I was a high-functioning addict. I would wake up in the morning, and the first thing I would do is take a methadone pill, then go help the kids get ready for school or whatever they might have going on that day. Then I would head to work myself with my man bag, some call them a MRS. While at work, I was responsible for caring for young adults ages 12 to 18 who lived in the facility where I worked. I was a counselor to these clients, and in some cases they struggled with drugs and alcohol issues. Looking back, I feel like I was a bit of a hypocrite. Then by midday or early afternoon, I would take another methadone pill to get me through the evening. My evenings would consist of picking up kids from activities or taking them to practices, and in some situations I was the coach. I would take my last dose at bedtime. I would wake up each day in a fog that most days I would not shake for at least 2 hours, causing me to be a difficult person to deal with. It seemed like I had always felt I had pain. However, looking back, I believe it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because I would always tell myself and others how much pain I had from my back issues. Because I would always tell myself and others how much pain I had from my back issues. I think I also used this as a way to get a little sympathy from time to time. I was always trained to stay ahead of the pain. I had been trained by the doctors to take the opioids as prescribed for the most effective use of the medication, and I took the opioids like clockwork. I believe because I was such a good patient and wanted to please the doctors, it was easy for me to become an addict of these opioids. Even though I used the opioids, I managed to work my full-time job and help raise 3 children. While on the opioids, life was more work from a physical and mental standpoint. I had to find the energy to go play the ball with the kids, to take them to practices, coach them, and go to work every day. Every day felt like a grind. I managed to get through each day as it came, never being able to look at the future for me and my family. I was grouchy at things I should not have been. I was short-tempered at people who really just wanted my help, and I had not yet realized I needed the help of others to have successes in my life. My wife, Kim, and I had been married for 6 years when we started to discuss my opioid use. I had been on opioids since 1985 and never missed a month of refills from my doctors. In 2015, Kim and I had discussed my going to visit a pain management doctor at KU. Because of Kim's medical background, I have a true respect for her knowledge, but when she would talk to me about my pain level, I was never clear on what that meant. It started me thinking that maybe I really didn't need the opioids like I thought I did. I cannot use this arm. Kim would tell me, usually after I complained about being constipated from the opioids, "Well, honey, you can get off of those and most of that will clear up." "What if my back pain gets worse or it is overwhelming pain?" my standard answer. "We can always figure something else out if that happens," she'd say. In the past 33 years, I can recall 0 times when one of my caregivers or doctors asked me if I wanted to get off the opioids. I had been on many different opioids over the past 33 years, oxycodone, hydrocodone, and in the last 15 years, methadone. Methadone was known for its use in helping individuals detox from heroin and had an ugly reputation as a result, but it helped me function every day, so I thought, and I kept taking it. I started to see the first pain management doctor at University of Kansas Medical Center. She helped me go from 30 plus milligrams of methadone a day down to 5 milligrams 3 times a day. At that time, the doctor felt like this was a great place in the medication process to hold for a while. Then in 2017, I met with pain management specialist Dr. Smith Manion, who referred me to Dr. Teresa Long. By this time, it was fall of 2017. She was not taking new patients at the time, but she was able to help me get in to see her. Meeting this doctor was the ticket. I was introduced to Dr. Long at the University of Kansas Medical Center. She is a psychiatrist who has been doing a study for opioid use. Her program was full because she had been doing this study for a very long time. Dr. Long asked me questions about how much I used the opioids and what time of day I took the opioids. I told Dr. Long that I followed the scripts and what the doctors have asked me to do while taking these medications. Our conversations, as I recall, had more to do with how to step down from the current dose to the next smaller dose, or whatever made sense to decrease the medication. For example, she advised me to start slow. At the time, I was taking 5 milligrams of methadone 3 times daily. Our discussion was to start by cutting the midday dose or the evening dose to 2.5 milligrams, then holding at that level for a few weeks and then cutting to the next lower dose. She also advised that I should not start feeling any withdrawal symptoms, and if I was, then I was on too low a dose of the medication. 2018 came along and my wife and I took a trip to Seattle, Washington. Prior to the trip, I had successfully stepped down to taking 2.5 milligrams twice daily. Upon our return, I decided to just stop taking the medication because I was having to cut these small pills into even smaller pieces. The pills would disintegrate as I cut these halves of the pills that you could hear the pills crumble into pieces so small that one might say it is dust. I don't remember ever noticing the smell of the pills, however. I had heard of people who would crush these pills and snort them. I decided on January 5th, after my morning dose, I was stopping. Detox began for me on January 6th, 2018. Dr. Long had gotten me to a point where I was taking a very minimal dose of methadone, 2.5 milligrams twice daily. I don't think she expected me to stop taking medication altogether when I did. In fact, I am pretty sure she would have appreciated it greatly if I had called her and explained what I wanted to do so she could monitor me closer and help keep me safe. But, like I said, on January 5th, I took my last dose. I didn't even tell Kim. I just stopped the methadone. That was mistake number 1, and 2 on my part, thinking that this process was going to be easier than it was, and not telling Kim. I was a little bit naive or cocky. This process can kill you if you do not take it seriously and do it under the care of your doctor and the support of your family. On January 6th, I felt fine. January 7th was another matter entirely. From day 3 of my detox and the following 5 days, I felt miserable. I remember thinking about taking more opioids to make the symptoms go away and feeling like I had no control over myself during this time period. I felt like I needed to vomit and could not. I experienced the sweats, clamminess, and hot flashes very much like the flu. Then my body started to release the toxins from my system and I started to have diarrhea that was toxic smelling. The type of smell that you could tell it was an old bowl matter, and my system was clearing out, lasting close to 24 hours. I had a weak appetite, and that also helped with the diarrhea because when nothing is going in, well, nothing is in there to come out. I had this overwhelming need to stretch my muscles in my entire body. I could not stretch enough. If I had had access to an old medieval torture machine, the kind they would put people on and tie their feet at one end of their hands at the other and slowly stretch them until they pulled into 2 halves, that's what I imagined would feel good during this time, or at least help stretch my muscles. It felt like I had bugs crawling under my skin at times. I continued to move my body in weird or unnatural ways to find relief from this inability to stretch out my muscles. This is what I believe caused me to not be able to sleep for 4 or 5 days straight. I would try to go to bed around 10 p.m., and by 11 p.m. I was up in the other room, pacing, sitting down, standing up, stretching my arms and legs, and trying to find the position that would give me the relief from this awful feeling. Sounds like restless body syndrome. Kim was shocked and concerned for my safety by this time in the detox. This was an unexpected and scary turn in my condition. Kim called Dr. Long's office and told them what I was going through and that I had stopped my methadone on January 5th. Dr. Long called me to check on me and asked me what was going on. I explained to her when I stopped, and she told me she had a medication to help with the detox symptoms and prescribed clonidine, a medication to help me tolerate the withdrawal symptoms and get me some rest. It took about 14 days to overcome this physiological addiction, but I did it! Understand, I did not do it alone, though I tried. I had the help of my wife, my doctor, and the clonidine, which was a very effective support network. But I want to make this very clear. I detoxed abruptly without informing my support network, thinking that on such a minimal dose it would be no problem. I was wrong. It was a big problem, and I was scared and feeling like what I did and feeling like what did I get myself into, and help. Thankfully, I had access to help. I would not recommend that any of you reading this try stopping cold turkey. I stop cold turkey every month, every time. Even though I had some guidance, I stopped cold turkey. Having said this, I doubt that many of you, if you are faced with this decision to stop opioids, would be physically or mentally able to handle this detox. This is very serious and it could take your life if not done correctly under the care of a doctor. No doctor has ever advised me on detoxing. I don't mean to belittle anyone who may be going through this. I say this as a factual statement. This was the most difficult challenge I have ever faced. I am not sure if my detox was as difficult or intense as anybody else's based on the amount of the drug I was using before I stopped taking it, or if everyone goes through this agony no matter how much one is taking. But I do know that what I went through to detox was enough, and I would not wish detox on anyone. Yeah, I wouldn't wish that on anyone either. I have detoxed cold turkey from days-long use of 10 milligrams at a time, like 50 plus times. And it sucks every time. Like, everything that he described, like, yep. Although he didn't talk about the runny nose. The runny nose thing. The runny nose. Ooh, I hate that runny nose. I hate that runny nose so much. This says discussion? Despite what I've been through, I am not angry at anyone for not asking me if I wanted to reduce or eliminate my opioid use. I believe there is much more behind the lack of action to remove me from the drugs. First of all, my doctors had the proof of my x-rays to look at and justify giving me the drugs each and every month for the last 33 years. Pardon me? Oh, why, I might throw up and I might throw up? I stopped looking at the screen, I'm reading a book. Does reading a book make me nauseous too? I do feel inflamed. The doctors also had training in the science of how these drugs can help people with pain management. Maybe some of that training happened into their offices by representatives of the drug companies selling opioids. I also believe it was a sign of the times. Doctors had nothing to read or listen to which said this stuff is causing more future problems than current help. I believe most people who have taken opioids still have substantial pain when on the drugs. For me, and I suspect for the typical opioid user, I faced the fear of not taking the drug and how I would function if I didn't have the drug available to me. The user is afraid to run out of the pills, not get a script refilled, or of going into withdrawal. Most who have run out of the drugs earlier than scheduled have probably felt the beginnings of withdrawal. At the time, I believed I was doing the right thing for my health, not really understanding what the drugs were doing to me besides reducing my pain. Because I believed what the doctors told me about my pain, I justified that I was doing what was right. The doctor said I could have the drugs. Unfortunately, many people around us have this type of addiction, people who may seem to have it all together. So if you're reading this, I ask you to be fair, open-minded, and don't judge us because of what we've taken to create a mindset of comfort. Now that I am opioid-free, I understand two important facts about myself. First, I do not have any back pain from my spinal cord injury. Okay, so this motherfucker been using the drugs. And this motherfucker been not even having any pain. And this motherfucker been using the drugs, but he ain't not even got any pain. Alright, that ain't not me. That is not me. I have pain. I have unimaginable, unfathomable pain. People just continue taking opioids when they don't have pain? Like, no pain. He doesn't have any pain. Second, I have experienced the freedom of regaining the control of my muscles, my mind, and my soul. The importance of this is safety for the opioid user who really doesn't need the medication but has become addicted, which that's not me. That's totally not me. So I'm not reading this for me at all. So I hope that this is finding the right people because this is not for me as it turns out. Many times when this happens, you hear of opioid users who cannot get pills turn to other more toxic street drugs. I want to help others remove this from their lives and not add to the ever-growing problems in the culture we live in of people fighting for their lives and losing because of opioids. I want to be clear that I am not a doctor and I do not understand I want to be clear that I am not a doctor and I do understand that in many cases the opioids are needed. However, I feel it is absolutely important that the doctor and the patient have a supervised exit strategy for removing the opioids. And that's not possible when you have chronic pain from nerve damage and endometriosis. Those are chronic conditions that are never going away. So, oftentimes when you hear about people who have been placed on opioids because of an injury and they run out of the prescription and their doctors tell them they won't feel this. I'm sorry. Oftentimes you hear about people who have been placed on opioids because of an injury and they run out of the prescription and their doctors tell them they won't refill the script. In this situation, fucking talking and breathing hurts. In this situation, the doctor should be planning for the future care of this patient and should have had an earlier conversation about what the process will look like when the time comes to stop the opioids. So it is very important that the doctor own their shit and the patient own their shit. After getting off the opioids, I have been able to do things I could not do before. Prior to opioid use, I was an athlete who could run for distances of 20 plus miles at one time. I was able to play basketball games and never take a break from play the entire game. And I would start to finish every football game I participated in. I had stamina, energy, strength, and was always ready to go. Then the opioids put that in the dark until getting off of them. I can now exercise for more than 30 minutes at a time without having to take 4 days to recover, think more clearly, dream, and take a deep breath without worrying about feeling like I have run out of air. I always felt like I could not breathe or catch my breath. I would walk 20 or 30 feet and have to take a break because of feeling like I could not breathe. Now I'm exercising up to 2 hours per day, riding my hand cycle, and feeling like I have the ability to draw in a full breath and get the oxygen I need. This was an eye-opening experience. What opened my eyes to the freedoms of getting off the opioids was the fact that I feel good. I have energy. My life is different from the past, and I feel grateful and blessed because I went through detox. That does not mean I want to go through it again, because I don't. Clearly, for me, the physical, emotional, and mental changes are allowing me to become a champion again. Lessons. One of the things I learned while I was going through detox is how grateful I am to have a wife and partner who cares enough to support me the way she does. She is always caring for me and making sure I am okay. I've made it a practice to reciprocate her unconditional love unconditionally. The best part about having this type of spouse in your life is how she always shows up and is there when you need her. When I was going through detox and not able to sleep for many days, she was there to make sure I was taken care of by calling the doctor and getting that help I needed to see me through to the end of the detox process. I feel strongly that gratitude is the strongest of all human emotions. Having gratitude towards others is vital to the building of relationships we want to foster. Understanding gratitude is to understand that gratitude is not a feeling but rather an action, in most cases, and when we need to show our gratitude to others, not just tell them. I have learned that surrounding yourself with people who love you is important, as is understanding that some people show love differently than others. For example, my friends who found out that I went through detox showed me love by telling me how proud they felt of me. My wife and children went through the events of the detox with me, and my wife physically was a part of the events showing me how much she cares. I know this to be true because who would voluntarily put themselves in a room filled with the toxic funk of the diarrhea to make sure I was okay? Since my detox experience, my perspective about people who struggle with addiction has changed in the most awesome of ways. I am able to embrace the person and not the addiction, and I am willing to allow them the love and kindness they need and deserve for their healing. I would admit that while I was using opioids, I was judgmental towards others, and specifically those I counseled. I am not sure if it was always that way, but it feels like it may have been. I don't believe any of us want to be that person, but most of us won't admit it if we are anyway. So I judged people who used opioids, and I had a mentality that people who used came from poor areas, had no money, and were generally bad people. I have been gifted the ability of change and see clearly that I was wrong. After attending several 12-step meetings and hearing the stories of the struggle of those in the room, I realized each of us come from a different place, that each of us have a different story, and that is okay. But many of us have some commonality around struggling with addiction, whether it is physiological or otherwise. Looking back at how I operated in those parts of my life, I feel I would have been a better, more attentive coworker and father if I was not using the opioids. The effect was less energy to do the things I was doing that should have been done with way more energy. I counseled others on their life issues, and sometimes it was drug or alcohol abuse. I feel like I would have been more effective as a counselor if I would have been able to use my recovery as a tool to helping others. I operated a motor vehicle every single day, and I'm surprised I never hurt another person along the way. I feel like I probably affected others in ways I may not realize. I think I would have been a better person if I had gotten off the opioids sooner in life. Having said this, I also believe that my journey and where I am currently is where I am supposed to be. These opioids caused much of the issues in life for me, looking back at the bigger picture. I learned that just going cold turkey with no support is the worst way to detox. Fortunately, once my wife saw what I was experiencing, she activated my support network that helped me survive the experience. I learned that my doctors were not wrong for caring for me how they did, but I was wrong for not investigating to find out if I was really having pain or not. I believe that we are all in charge of our own health care. I understand the education and respect that doctors have in our communities and social circles, and I do respect them, but our culture today is to find out for yourself and make your own choices. I think that is good. I learned that detoxing sucks. I will never go through that again. Mental, emotional, and physical strength play a part in overcoming a trauma in your life. It takes a person as much strength to not overcome a struggle as it does to overcome that same struggle. I believe getting healthy is a key part of happiness, and having a clear mind to be yourself is important to the process of overcoming this type of adversity in your life. Looking back, I can say that each person who goes through this struggle is capable of detoxing and remaining clean. Then we can add in the support from others who become accountability partners in this journey. Finally, make sure you do this detox in a safe, controlled environment with the help of a professional. Okay, that's page 8, and next steps is where we're going to pick up again. But I'm in too much pain to read. Breathing and speaking and using my arm all hurt a whole lot, and I can't do it anymore. So, tune in next time for more reading from Tom Shaw's book. Thank you.